So we're going to go through the third place from the previous hackathons, talking about first principles solution. They're going to give us a 15-minute presentation, just walk us through their findings, their experience, and give you some top tips. And then we're going to go through fourth place, which is extract team name here, and second place, which is Stake Taylor, and first place, they came away with the loot. They got $3 grand between them, so you know they've got some tech they probably don't need. They probably bought some more guitars or whatever they're going to do. So the spawner scrapers are going to tell us what they did, and then we'll have a bit of Q&A if we've got time at the end. If you want to contact me, there's my LinkedIn, a QR code there, so take a screen grab of that. So without any further ado, if I could pass over to the first principles team. So if you want to take the stage, I'd be very grateful indeed.
Thanks, Martin.
So I'll stop
Hi, Martin.
sharing my screen. Welcome all. So I'm still jiggling my screens. Ah, you're in the seat. Right, off you go.
Can everyone see our screen firstly?
Yeah, all good.
Oh, brilliant.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Alexandra Spencer. I'm an MSc Data Science postgraduate student with Robert Gordon University based in Aberdeen. And together with my co-presenter, Nahid Jafar, lead construction data and product analyst with Gleeds, we'll be walking you through the solutions that we developed while tackling Challenge 11, namely a cost prediction model, as part of Project Hack10 last month. Just to give you a bit of an overview of what we'll be discussing today, we'll be introducing the team. We'll also be introducing to you the challenge, why this challenge, what kind of solutions were required. We'll be walking you through the task map of how we split the tasks and our little journey for the entire hackathon. We will, of course, cover the solutions, which are actually 3 different tools: data collection, benchmarking and insights, and the cost prediction model. We'll also be addressing how these solutions can be expanded further. And we'll be sharing the sponsor feedback that we received, as well as the lessons that we have learned as a team. So without further ado, introducing the team, myself and Nahid, of course, as well as James Gardner, Nicola Herring, Manoj Sarkar, Sheldon Atkinson, Basil Youssef, and Adrian Woodrup. As you can see from the job titles themselves, the knowledge and skill set that everyone brought to the team was quite diverse. It was quite a well-rounded team, which we're quite lucky. So that wasn't an issue whatsoever. We'd also like to extend a special thank you to Paul Burrows from BCIS, who provided us with the data that we used to develop the solutions that you are about to see. So my co-presenter, Nahid, will now be walking you through the challenge.
Hi guys. So the challenge that we came up with was, as a cost manager, I want the ability to accurately capture project cost data. I want to be able to benchmark project cost and forecast project cost high level to clients. It forms the basis of initial cost advice. So my previous experience, I spent 9 years in the construction industry as a cost manager. So, you know, I know all too well about this challenge. Within Gleeds, we do actually capture data, but to capture costs accurately has been a challenge, and also to be able to do it easily has also been a challenge. So we kind of use this hackathon as a test project to see if we can actually improve this project. And interestingly enough, you know, the solution that we came up with, which we'll show you guys later, did massively impact the direction that we're taking the business in terms of capturing data on a project. So the solution, so it's a 3-part solution. The first part is data collection. So again, we want the ability to easily store data and retrieve project cost data. The second bit we want to be able to do is benchmark and insight. So once we have that data, we want to be able to compare this against other similar projects that we've done. Again, we want this to be easy. We want them to be able to go in, refine the data, select the projects that are suitable for them to be able to run the benchmarking analysis. And then lastly is something that's really interesting and something that I think is going to shape the industry more and more, is a cost prediction model. So this is something that we haven't seen, you know, we don't currently have within Gleeds, and it's something that we tried to test out during this hack. But benchmarking is based on data that we've already collected and surveyors have already inputted into the database. What we don't have at all is to do cost prediction on projects that we haven't got the data for. As an example, we might have hotel projects, but we might not have high-rise hotel projects. So with the cost prediction model, we can go in. What we want to be able to do is create that high-rise hotel project and see what the machine learning algorithm thinks the project cost might be. And where this has become really interesting is that we can use the machine learning model to come up with a cost. And then as the project develops within the construction phase, we can go back and compare that cost with the machine learning model to see how accurate it was. So this was really interesting for us, something that we've been very eager to explore. And later on, we'll show you what we came up with as a solution. So the task map, this being mine and Alex's second hackathon, kind of used the blueprint that we used for the first hack, which was great because we won the first hack that we did. So we didn't want to change it too much. I won't run through all of the 8 steps that we did, but put simply, the first thing we do is identify the team members, the skills, the strengths and weaknesses, and kind of separate amongst ourselves and kind of split the tasks up. So no, we don't have too many people working on the same task. And then tasks 2 and 3 is all about looking at the data, trying to identify the strengths and weaknesses, qualitative data, quantitative data, what clean do we need to do, what we can use, can't use. So again, it's almost a lot of planning a lot of planning at the start before we actually start developing anything. And then steps 4 and 5, we identify power-ups as something that we want to use. What capabilities does it have? Can it meet the solutions that we want to develop? And then once we've done all of that, we also looked at Power Apps as a front-end tool to visualize the data that we've got once we've cleaned it and analyzed it. And then lastly, step 7 is to do with the cost prediction model, is having the machine learning model that Alex was helping and a few other of our colleagues were building. And then lastly, this is also really important, step 8, bringing all the different elements together for final review. Step 8 is showing that we didn't have any reviews between step 1 to 8, which isn't true. We had regular reviews between all of the steps. We met up to find out what's working, what's not working, and if there wasn't anything that wasn't working, we kind of identified it very early on and either changed direction or figured out a solution. So we had regular reviews. Sometimes you have a team of 6, sometimes you have a team of 8. You want to have regular reviews because you don't want to get siloed between those teams of 6 or 8 to make sure that you're all working collectively towards the end objective. So that was a task map, and we think it works really well. Feel more than welcome to screenshot this if you don't want to implement something similar. So the solution itself. I've got a really short video to run through the solution. So here you can see the Power App that we've developed. We tried to make it look as pretty as we could. So the idea is, you'd use your Microsoft credentials to log in. So here, James is logged in. You'll see the 3 squares at the bottom, which is the data entry, benchmarking, and cost prediction. So you can select each of these squares depending on what you want to do. So the first thing we're going to be selecting is the data entry. So once you click the data entry form, it will take you to another page where you can input project-specific information. So the example that you see here is really basic. I think the one that we are developing at the moment is a lot more sector-specific, project-specific. But again, we want to make this process really easy. I think where we failed in the past with data entry is that we ask too much information too quickly and people switch off really easily. So we wanted to simplify this. We wanted to make it really easy for people to go in and enter data in and not make it a huge chore. Everyone's really busy within our organization. We don't want them to spend too much time inputting data. So once you submit, the data gets stored within an Azure SQL database that we can use to do the benchmarking. So I'm just going to show you the benchmarking tool that we created. So there's actually 2 that we produced for the hack. One for schools and one for student accommodations. Again, as Alex mentioned, the data that we used was provided by BCIS. And this is really interesting. This is something that we've not done within an organization, so we explored it at the hack. So using the BCIS location and inflation indices, what we can do is recast all of those projects to a certain time and a certain location. For example, we might have a project that was built in London, but we want to almost lift that project up, imagine it, like if you imagine it, and then put that in another location and see what that cost might be. So BCIs provide the location and inflation indices. What we've done is put the algorithms and codes in for us to change all of the data within our database to whatever the user wants to select. So if I carry on playing it, you will be able to see once I select it that the TPI indices changes and the location indices changes. And then the next step would be, once we've selected our location and our inflation indices, we go into kind of the detail about the project now. So there's various filters here. I won't go into all of them, but we've got a building filter, qualitative filter, and quantitative filter. And then you can select, and as you can see, as you select filters, it kind of narrows down the data set. And then we can run visuals on those data sets. So here's an example of all of the 72 projects that we've got from BCIS. And there's some very useful benchmarking visuals that we're showing here, the cost per meter squared, the distribution of the NRM building element. The one on the top right is actually quite interesting, which is looking at the gross internal floor area and the construction cost. So as you can imagine, if the building gets bigger, it's going to cost more. Oh, I think I've gone back one. Sorry, apologies. If I go back. So yeah, as the building gets bigger, the construction cost increases. And here we can also identify outliers within our data set. On the top right, you can see a project that doesn't fit the trend that we've got. So using the model, we can exclude it. And so if I forward it across, this is just kind of going into a bit more detail about the filters. So again, we did another one for student accommodation. So this is really important as well. So for those that have worked in the construction industry, you'll know that the different sectors are analysed differently. So if you're looking at a hotel project versus a commercial project versus a residential project, there's different things you want to benchmark. So we don't see this tool as being one tool for all sectors. We kind of see it being slightly adjusted for different sectors. So for this example, we've looked at schools and we've looked at student accommodation, and actually talked about future expressions about different sectors. So that's kind of it for the benchmarking, and Alex is going to talk very quickly about the machine learning or cost prediction model that we created.
Thank you, Nahid. We've built the solution using the superstructure building element to prove what is possible. As you can see, it's split between 3 areas: general information, specification and scope, and project particulars. It's the user that selects what is relevant to the project itself, from the foundation type to floor type, structure screed, water installation, space heating, and so on and so forth. Click submit, excuse me, and you will get the cost prediction for each element as well as a total. Now, under the hood, we've used several different programming languages and different algorithms to tackle specific parts of the overall model. We have traded off simplicity of the overall solution under the hood for accuracy of the figures. Given the short period of time that we've had available, we have created this with all 3 parts within 18 hours, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. Now, this 100% can be improved. You can go to the next slide, Nahid. Thank you. As any team here today, or anyone that's been part of Project Hack will say the same thing. If we only had more time, if we had just one more day, then it would have been this and that. Like with any solution, it can 100% be improved. It's really just a matter of time. But it's just an overview of what is possible within a short period of time with the right team. In terms of how this can be expanded, we have 4 points. Sector and project type. So as Nahid mentioned, we have only taken schools and student accommodation specific for the purpose of this hack. However, it can be replicated and adjusted for different sectors and different project types 100%. In terms of the algorithms themselves, as I have mentioned a few minutes ago, we've demonstrated the solution using the superstructure building element to prove the concept, to prove what is possible, but further algorithms can be built for additional building elements. Power BI functionality, we can expand filter parameters to enable the user to remove irrelevant building elements, such as facilitating an external works on a case-by-case basis. And probably the most important thing is data sources to expand, to increase the overall data volume and quality. What we had was very good from BCIS. However, like with anything, the more data you have, the more accurate your figures are going to be. In terms of the, we'll now be sharing the feedback we received.
Leslie, even though I didn't.
Thank you. We'll now be sharing the feedback we've received from sponsors and the lessons we've learned. In terms of feedback from the sponsors, we've worked extremely well together and split the tasks among ourselves based on expertise and skill, as Nahid had mentioned in the task map. In terms of lessons learned, the virtual environment allowed us to both effectively collaborate and to have quieter environments. So we can all either individually or in sub-teams, we can go away, work on whatever we needed to do and interrupt it, and then come back together in a little reviews meeting and see where we are. We've also learned the importance of getting into the mindset of the sponsor to fully understand the issue, as well as analyzing the data up front, understanding what you're looking to achieve and the potential limitations between what you actually want and what's possible within the given time. As Naheed mentioned in the very beginning, regular sessions where we come together to review the progress were extremely important. I believe we had one every 1 hour, every 2 hours, just to make sure that everyone is on track with the same thing. And if not, then we just adjusted the overall direction. Our advice for future teams is time management is key if you want to achieve what you've said from the outset. So with that being said, we'd like to thank everyone for their time. And if you have any questions, then Naheed and I are more than happy to answer them.
Absolutely superb. Thank you very much. Yeah, really appreciate that. So I've got a question for you.
Sure.
So in terms of your experience, Alex, what's it done for you personally? I've been involved in this hack.
Well,
you're a bit different. You're sort of coming out of university, and you've been doing a master's in this. What's your experience of it?
Yes. So the reason I wanted to attend the hackathons was mainly to work on real solutions, real issues that the industry is facing. That for me is the main thing. The second part was to expand my portfolio, because I'm a big believer in an image speaks 1,000 words rather than putting my CV, well, I'm proficient in this and in that and so on and so forth. I'd rather just the employer, this is my portfolio, this is what I can actually do. I think that speaks more volumes about a person. In terms of what it's done for me, well, I haven't announced it yet, but in a few weeks, I'll be officially joining Gleeds.
Yeah, we've snapped up.
Wow!
Yeah, I'm shifting industries.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
I'm very excited. Very excited.
So this hackathon's giving you a job?
Yeah, basically.
Fantastic.
But it's the right job. That's the important thing. It's the right job at the right company. And yeah, it's just a good fit. It was pretty much a no-brainer.
Fantastic. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you.
We were really impressed with Alex when we were working with her. This was the second hack that we worked with Alex. I think it's kind of opened our eyes a little bit in terms of what the capabilities are. So we're growing the team, and because we worked with Alex, we know how great she is. It was a no-brainer for us, really.
Cool. Well, there you go, eh?
Yeah.
So in terms of you, Naheed, what's your sort of take-homes from it? What's it done for you?
Martin, this is our second hack. I think we used what I had a conversation with James, actually. We kind of used the hack as like a testing ground. So we come up with all of these ideas, things that we really want to do that we might necessarily have the time or the resource at that particular time to do it. And we kind of come up with these ideas. We go into the hack. We use the experience of the team. We get the likes of Alex who bring a fresh pair of eyes and perspective into these issues, and then we test it. And what we found is, both hacks, what we've done, we've carried on further developing from it. So, the hack is the start and gives us a foundations, and then we spend the next couple of weeks or months developing these ideas so we can roll them out within the business. So, just looking at this hack, the Power Apps for the data capture, we're actually working with an external consultant at the moment to do exactly that, is use Power Apps for the data capture and build that capabilities and potentially doing benchmarking and the cost prediction model. That's the reason we're hopefully going to get Alex within our team to help us build that cost prediction model and kind of continue that progress.
Cool. Superb. Well, thank you both so much.
No
I
problem.
really appreciate it.
Thank you
Thanks
for having
sharing
us.
your journey and your experience, and it's cracking news you got a job out of it. Really happy for you.
I do actually see a question from a computer science student in the chat. If you're okay with it, I can answer it.
Yeah, please go for it. Yeah.
So it's from Milovan saying, I'm a computer science student, and while I find these challenges and the chance to participate in Project Hack10 very exciting, it also seems quite daunting as I'm no professional. Any key advice? There's nothing to be scared about, really. Just be yourself. The whole idea of the hack is you're improving your skill set. You get a chance to work on real issues and to meet other people. And one of the important things that I would say when it comes to Project Hack is the challenge sponsors, they want to work with you. This isn't exactly a case of you need to impress within the first 5 minutes. They want to meet people with different skill sets, with, as Nahi said, with a fresh perspective, because you never know what you're going to learn or who you're going to meet. So just having that bit of openness, open mind when you come into it, there's nothing to be scared about, really. I hope I've answered your question, but if not, by all means, shoot up a follow-up.
That's brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll have a bit of Q&A at the end as well. So big round of applause. Thank you. Do appreciate that. Right, if I could pass over to Jake. So Jake, the floor is yours, sir.
Sure, I'll just share my presentation.
And thanks again, Jake, for giving up your time tonight. I do appreciate it. It's very good here.
No worries.
So Jake's a slightly different breed to some of the others, I think, because he's been in this space a little while. So Jake, is it worth giving a bit of background about you as well? You know, where you're fitting with it?
Yes, when I work, oh, there we go. So just try and put it in presentation mode. There we go. Yeah, I have actually done a little bit of a slide. Yeah. So yeah, this is basically my review of the hack we did over 2 days and lessons learned and sort of like tips for it with a bit of description. As mentioned, I'm a data engineer from the Open Group, which is a data consultancy, and normally what I do is actually I'm building the tools for data scientists and data analysts to work on the data. So I'm normally trying to give them high quality data to analyze and make sure it's in the right place and gets to the right people. So this was a bit different for me. So it's more data analysis. And yeah, we're also hiring, but that's enough sales for now. The hack team was another data engineer from Oakland, a business analyst from Oakland, and on the day we got a data scientist from Orbital Media and some domain experts from Costain Group and from GE. So it was quite a nice mix in the end. We were a bit worried it'd be just data engineers trying to figure out how to do data analysis. The challenge we chose it actually a few days beforehand after looking at all the challenges, which was from the Costain Group, which was to try and scrape some cost estimates of various infrastructure, various construction materials and labour from a price book, which sort of like lays out how much screws are worth and how much labour it will take to put up a wall and demolish a wall and that sort of thing. And just to sort of like digitize it, because the only format it currently is in is an 800-page PDF, which can be time consuming to read through and search. So this challenge was just trying to put it into like a visualized search tool that you can quickly look through and see what the price is for a screw or a wall. One of the things that attracted me to this challenge was the fact to try to use Azure Cognitive Search. I do a lot of work in Azure in my day job, but I never used Cognitive Search for, so I was kind of curious to see how good it was and if it lived up to what Microsoft sells it as. Early on we got into doing the requirements and we engaged with the challenge setters about what we should be doing, and also just sort of like trying to see what we could do as well, which I'll talk a bit more about later. But here we did a classic Moscow business analysis of basically prioritizing what we should do, what we must do, what we could do, and what we're not going to do. That is very important for such a short deadline, is to actually limit what you're going to do early on and what you're going to deliver. And now just talking about the actual PDF itself, the PDF was actually surprisingly difficult to pass. In the end, we only looked at like one section of many, because trying to pass all 800 PDFs in 2 days was probably an impossible challenge. So we only looked at one section that was the same. And even then, it's like split up into about 7 different subheadings, as you can see here, split up by different colors. And sometimes it would only have 4 hierarchies. Sometimes it would have 7, sometimes it would have 5, sometimes it would have 6. Also, the thing with PDFs is what people might know, it's not actually in a structured format. PDFs are just images and text. So when you pass it out, it just comes out as text, and so you have to arrange it back into a table to make sense. So you as a data professional will have low trust in just passing a PDF the first time. So it does require a lot of effort to get it into a good format that you can trust to hand over to analysts and domain experts to be able to use. Just to go over, I just wanted to go over sort of like what did we typically do, and this probably how other hacks typically will go. What Hack10 will go, which is the first day was a lot of setting up the right environment, get everyone assigned to a task, try and work out what people want to do and be good at, and sort of like put them on the right task. That's very much what I was trying to do as the captain, and make sure everyone is happy and not struggling. Also, there was built-in requirements early on, and then we started to get stuck into the code as early as possible. When there was two strategies we were going for. One was passing the PDF in using Python code to output to CSVs. That would then get straight into a Power BI report. And the other one was trying to break up the PDFs to process them through as a cognitive search. And so there was a bit of setting that up as well and making sure cognitive search didn't throw any errors and was passing the PDF correctly. What I should briefly say, what is so cognitive search? Basically, it sets unstructured text like PDFs and allows you to build a search tool out of it, which I'll talk about more a bit later. And then we started building the PowerPoint deck early on. We figured that would be good to do as early as possible. And then on day 2, we started to finish off the code and start building the report based on the outputs from the code. And then we added some data quality checks. As I talked about with PDFs, it's very hard to trust the data that comes out of PDFs because it can come out a complete mess, usually the first few times you pass it. So we really wanted to put tests so we could show the people that are using the dashboard that you can trust the data. And then finally recording the video for the pitch. And this was our final output architecture, which was starting off with the PDF, running it through some Python code. Python is probably the best language for parsing PDFs because there's lots of libraries out there for parsing PDFs and you can customize it a lot to your needs. And it's great for data munging and data science. So I recommend Python as a great data tool to learn. So as I said, and then we put it into CSV after passing the tables and then also splitting it and then trying to see what we get out of both of them, both out cognitive services and out of just pure Python code. We found in the end that cognitive services, it didn't really pass tables very well, to be fair. So we mostly relied on the CSVs from the Python code. I think cognitive services is best for just like free text and lots of essays and things like that, and maybe small forms rather than these complex tables that the price book was made up of. Now just onto the Power BI outputs that we're getting. This was the main part of it, which was being able to search through the book to find the materials and the labor of various construction tasks and construction materials, such as how much a screw is, how much labor it costs to take down a wall and put up a wall. And you can search through various different ways. So you can go through the 6 different levels that are in the price book, and you can use 2 different ways, which was the MRN2 and the SM7, which is the 2 different ways that construction materials are categorized in the industry. We also put in a regional adjustment rate because we found out by reading the book that materials will cost less in the East Midlands, say, than in London, which we thought was important to factor into our search tool. This was just a fancy graph that I probably won't put in now when thinking about it, but it just gives a different way of searching through the PDF outputs to see how much everything costs and how it breaks down by categories. Then getting back to the trust in the data, here we had the raw PDF text and we were comparing it against the outputs from our Python code. raw PDF text actually come from cognitive services, but I'd probably use PDF images if I did this again. And this is just so you can actually compare the raw data against the outputs to check that you are getting the right price for a 100mm thick concrete bed here, and that matches the PDF text. So we're just trying to give the analysts trust that they're getting the right data. And again, we did some basic data quality tests to show that we had some reasonable confidence in the data we were outputting with no type error counts, so no one was putting text in a number column, and we were getting a smallish amount of nulls. And all the null counts were all the same across all the columns. So I was saying fourth is nice, but would it, you'd always like to do better. So I thought I'd write a slide about how to come forth. And you also can say this is lessons learned. So I would say engage with the challenge setters early and thoroughly. I think we found out they maybe wanted slightly different. They probably wanted more of a power app / website where they could build a bill of materials, and I think that would have satisfied them more than just a visualized search tool. If we learned that a bit earlier, we might have done the hack in a different way, potentially. I would say work on your video pitch as early as possible. You might think a few hours is enough time to do a video pitch. I would say no. I would try and we could have done a much better video pitch if we started much earlier. And try to decide on early what your hack outputs and stick to them. I think you have to be decisive and stick to your guns, and don't dither and go down too many avenues because you only have 2 days to do it. And if possible, try and do research around the challenge before that. The hacks challenge is released a week beforehand, so you can do research into them and see what will work and what might not work in terms of what Python libraries you can use, what tools you can use, that sort of thing, what the data might look like. And this might be a controversial one, which is try to agree a team well before the hack begins, so you don't have to spend time working out what people do and try and figure out what team it is. But you don't have to take this as literal. You can also just turn up if you just want to attend a hack to network and build your CV and other things like that. But it is useful if you have a diverse range of skills. So like it was really useful to have a business analyst and a data scientist on that team, for example. I also wanted to talk about being a hack captain. I thought that was quite useful because I don't think it's probably been mentioned before, and it can be quite different role than people that are just mainly delivering on the day. I think a captain can be more stressful, especially as you'll be working with a group of people you don't know, and you've only got 2 days to deliver. I work with large teams and over projects that are worth millions of pounds. But they're less stressful than the 2 days. So being a captain, I think it's much less stressful and more fun if you're not a captain. But if you want to build out your leadership skills, then I think being a hack captain is a good stress test of your leadership skills. And don't expect to get much practical work done as a hack captain. You will be spending most of your time managing people and making sure they're doing the right things and then sticking to the task and delivering against the requirements. So there's lots of talking to lots of people, making sure that they're doing the right thing. And if they're stuck, and see if you can help them out if they're struggling, or pair up people if need be, so you can get the best outputs out there. And finally, it's just sort of like try and be decisive. You, as a leader, you will never always you can't always make the right decision because you don't know all the information. So you do have to just stick. So it's better to decide early on and do it rather than dither and sort of like not deliver as much by just trying to explore the options. Thanks. Thank you for listening. If you want to find out more about being a data engineer or data professional, then you can talk to me on LinkedIn or send me an email.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Jake. That was ace. Loads of really good insights. Hopefully Jake's not scared two people off about
Sorry.
So it's not about being a team captain, because I think it is character building, right? You will get experience. You put it on your CV, you know, you'll learn more about yourself as well, you know, the way you work under pressure and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it was fun still. I want to get that across. It was still, I still enjoyed the experience, and I still enjoyed the 2 days, and I got a lot of, I learned a bit about myself in terms of being a leader as well, even though I quite a bit in my day job as well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and I think it is. It's a PhD in cat herding is required, because in 2 days you get a load of people come together. They've never met each other before, disparate set of skills, and you've got to find your way through it. It's quite hard, but it's quite fulfilling, I think, at the end of it, you know, when you come away. And you only narrowly missed out on the prize as well, you know, a smidgen of a point, I think. So, yeah, close. But great. I think there were some great insights in there. I think there's a question there for you. Can't quite read it. In terms of the capability you've developed, were you able to update current project outturns based on real-time project performance, or is that another project?
I think that might be another project. Because yeah, when you got, it's a static PDF, so it's there wasn't much in terms of real time. You probably would build it differently if it was real. You build things differently compared to static data, compared to real time data is coming through. It's more of a streaming platform rather than a what this is built for, which is a batch one. If people want to look at what, there's something for people to look up is streaming versus batch data jobs.
Yeah. So I think what this challenge was really good at and really tested people was ripping data out of a document, basically, you know, a really messy document, and you got to rip the data out and structure it and then present it back. And it's the same challenge for first place as well. So they both worked on the same problem, went about it slightly differently, but the technical challenge was quite similar. And I think it's down to your domain experts as well about their creativity and the vision to go with it. So I think that's why you need the domain experts in the team, because they'll help to shape your solution. But yeah, great presentation. Thank you, Jake. Really appreciate your time.
No worries.
Cool, thank you. So if we could pass over now to State Taylor. So this is the team who were messing about with GPT-3. So we've been trying to get hold of GPT-3 for probably 3 or 4 months, and then we finally got the API key to it. We opened that up to the community and said, it'll fill your boots, and what can you do with GPT-3? So this team got stuck in and did some cool stuff. So chaps, over to you. And lady, sorry. Christine's in there as well, so I do apologise, Christine. Right, go for it.
Okay, so can you all see that okay?
Yep, all good.
Wonderful.
Hi, this is Team State Taylor, and I'm Vipul Kumar. I'm a student of data science from Loughborough University.
I'm Jack, and I am. This is my third hack, and I'm a data analyst at Mace.
Good evening. I'm Russell Willis. I work for Mace. I'm a lead for PMO, business analyst, business intelligence, and data analyst. And this was my 7th hack.
So hi everyone, I'm James. I've been working at Projecting Success for 3 months now as a data analyst, and this is my first hack.
Hi everyone, I'm Torben Schmidt-Hansen. I work for Mott MacDonald as a cost intelligence analyst, and this was also my first hack.
Christine Curtis, Principal Process Engineer working for Costain, also a PD apprentice. This is my 3rd hack. So
first thing I found is that hackathons, they're really great for networking and development of your skills, as well as great fun. The team formed, we all came together because we're all sort of very curious. Speaking personally, I was super excited to use GPT-3 as I'm well into AI and I kind of follow all the blogs online, and it perfectly blends my interests in psychology, philosophy, and computer programming. Next slide, please. So created by OpenAI, it's incredibly good at emulating the way humans naturally use language. The full code is kept under lock and key. Only Microsoft really get access under the hood, as it were, because we don't need any more fake news being spouted out online more than there already is. Luckily, this hackathon, we got the chance to use the limited access API, as Martin mentioned, and it's really been great. It uses a neural network, which is basically code mimicking the way that human brains and synapses work. Specifically, it uses a machine learning model known as the transformer, which is nothing to do with Optimus Prime, in case you were wondering. The branch of AI research it used is called deep learning, and David Chalmers, as you can see on the right, leading expert in the philosophy of mind, called it one of the most interesting and important AI systems ever produced. He himself's quite an interesting character too, if you ever want to look him up. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Here on the left, you can see a little Venn diagram of where deep learning sits within the broader field of machine learning and then even broader field of artificial intelligence. But specifically, deep learning uses a network of perceptrons, which is a term for bits of code, chunks of code, which just act like synapses in the human brain and send weighted signals to each other to develop a sort of ongoing learning experience. Interestingly enough, chess, we managed to get a computer to beat the world grandmaster back in 1996, I think it was, whereas deep learning has allowed us to get Go, a much more complex game, to be beating the world grandmaster in 2017, and that's AlphaGo. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Torben. So essentially the way that you interact with GPT-3 is through this playground most of the time. So all you do is you give it a prompt, for example, here is a poem by Shakespeare, and you press go, and GPT-3 will just create it'll keep going until you say stop. So here it's created a sonnet in iambic pentameter trying to imitate Shakespeare. And yeah, it's just amazing at writing like even essay long bits of script that really look human. But it can sort of perform like a clever student who hasn't done their reading. There'll be some facts, some half-truths, and straight-up lies all strung together in a convincing string. And the other example we got is a following conversation with an AI assistant. You tell GPT-3 that the assistant is meant to be helpful, creative, clever, and friendly, and it will write a nice bubbly conversation between a human and an AI, where they talk about the beautiful miracle of life and all this other stuff. So it is a really cool tool. I think we're going to go on to a video that we did that's just going to sum up what we actually did throughout for the project.
Here's the problem statement. Hi, Project Hack9. We are Stake Taylor, and we took on challenge 10. Here's the problem statement. How can we successfully tailor our project communication channels through various platforms using GPT-3? What is GPT-3? Well, if you want the acronym explanation, it's there at the bottom for anyone who's interested. But here's the playground and an example. We asked it this question in bold, and out it spat this information here, just sort of a language generator. Here's a user story for the problem we're trying to complete. As a project professional, I want to tailor a single project update communication to predefined stakeholders so that I can save time while delivering an effective project communication through the correct use of tone. How do we go about doing that? So we collected, first of all, data set, some from the general public in social media, web pages. We found how the project should communicate in that tone by basically looking at social media posts and web pages. Project sponsor, we extracted the data from board minutes and emails. And to the project team, we extracted the data from newsletters and bulletins. This is going to train our model. We collected them all together, compiled them in a training database, and then provided that to GPT-3 to try and hone its ability to use tone correctly. Then we selected the type of media. In the process, we select the type of media that we output our text in. We select the stakeholder we're pitching to, so a different use of tone for each one. We'd expect it cheap and cheery for the general public, formal and detailed for the project sponsor, and accurate and concise for the team members. Then this generates an input prompt to GPT-3, a custom input prompt. With that input prompt, GPT-3 works its magic and spits out a tailored communication. We invented 2 projects to test this out on. One of them is not invented, actually. It's a real project, Crossrail. You may have heard of it. It's somewhere we collected our data from. And also the nuclear yellow submarine, which is based up in Liverpool and a bit of a farcical project we invented for a joke to see if it could do whatever you gave it. Here's one of the examples. Here's what it came up with for project team members. It managed to send out an email including Zoom links, call numbers, dial-in numbers, and it updates people based on information at these two URLs. So here we go. We've got the project sponsors output. So this is tailored, a letter tailored to the project sponsor. You can see that it begins with "Dear project sponsor" and "Yours sincerely," as well as summarizing some of the vital information which a project sponsor would be interested in here. Finally, the output to the general public. We thought, you know, a social media prompt, that tends to be a sort of excited way of communicating. So we asked it to explain the above text in an excited way, and lo and behold, out it spat this. Here's a GUI we built to try and develop this and productionize it into something which is a tool which anyone can use to communicate to different levels of stakeholder at their chosen sort of media form. You can select from the drop down here, and it'll spit out a customized comms to that stakeholder level. The challenges we came across, two of them: token limitations, which meant that we couldn't really provide enough training data to the model. And also because otherwise it eats into the output of a model. You're allowed about 8,000 characters in total for training data, output, and prompt. And finally, integration of the GUI with the API. We struggled a bit to get that working correctly. Here's an example. We provided it with information about Crossrail update, and it comes out talking about nurses. This is something we'd like to refine in further work. Future improvements to our project. We could integrate more customization options, so more stakeholders, more categories of media output. We'd like to train GPT-3 further with more tokens and maybe collaborate with the GPT-3 owners on this. We'd like to be able to automate regular bulletins, so weekly updates could be provided to your team without so much as lifting your finger. We'd also like to increase the ability to integrate with Microsoft Power Tools, and we'd like to start developing a chatbot. Here's one which we just tried using GPT-3's Playbox over here. Finally, it doesn't always get it quite right. This is quite a humorous attempt to ask what GPT-3 is different from GTA-3. Thanks. Bye. Hi, Project.
Thanks, guys. Is that it? We're still going?
No, we're still going. So
cool.
How did we approach the challenge? At the introduction stage, identifying the team skills and expectations from the hackathon challenge was key to define realistic targets. We did not identify the team lead at the first opportunity, and Martin kindly reminded us of the importance of having a team lead mid-morning on the first day of the hackathon. The problem statement was tackled at the very start. It was derived from the challenge problem statement and refined to focus the problem-solving aspect. In the case of GPT-3, we took the time to have a play and appreciate the opportunity while sharing new learning. This was an important step to create a positive experience. A user story was then created where a hypothesis was derived on how the problem affected the identified users while recognizing their needs to define the problem-solving approach. The success criteria identified what the team sees as a successful outcome to the challenge within the 2-day time constraints and within the team skills as well. Importantly, we started the presentation on day 1 and conveyed all the above, and also using words that are understood by all and limiting the use of technical jargon associated with the subject matter. We found that checking up regularly between ourselves also helped to sustain our focus. Next slide, please. Sorry.
Yeah, so a summary of what we did. So the first part of the problem was understanding the problem itself. So from the summarizing the video that you saw earlier, so the problem statement was, how can we successfully tailor our project communication channel through various platforms using GPT-3? So the goal that we set out for ourselves, given the time constraint, was to come up with a minimum viable product implementing GPT-3 that could take in prompt from the user and automate communication targeted to the selected stakeholder category in correct tone and sentiment. So the second step was to break the problem into smaller tasks. The 3 major tasks that we identified was basically creating an interface so that anyone can use the application, creating a backend script that would interact with the API, take in the input, feed the information to the GUI, and that would be the output. And often ignored, but the most crucial part of the hackathons are creating a pitch. So we identified that aspect right at the beginning as well, and we started working on that since from day one itself. Next slide, please. Yeah, so once we are done with step 1 and step 2, the third was to delegation of those smaller tasks based on the skill set within our team. We did it accordingly as per the skill set available. First, delegating a person for UI designing user interface, then backend developer to interact with GPT-3. I picked up that task, and the third was to delegating someone to start working on the presentation and the pitch since day 1. And once we are clear with step 1, 2, 3, the final step was to build, test, and improve, and finally promote the application. Next slide, please.
So some of the key lessons learned and the key takeaways. As this was my first hackathon, before coming into it, I was quite skeptical about how much I would actually be able to contribute, knowing that there's going to be a lot more experienced players to work with. But actually, I was wrong to assume that. There was a lot of places where I could put a fair amount of input. And some of the key takeaways are skills and experience. We had some people in the team that were really clued up on Python and GUI development, so it was really cool to take a note out of their book and work on some of those skills. An obvious one is networking. It's a great opportunity to meet and work alongside like-minded people on real problems, as well as gain some long-lasting beneficial contacts. And then coming out of this hack for future hacks, I think it's always some notes and some points that I would use for the next hack. Have a right from the start, or as early as you can, have a clear idea of the end goal and product and how you're going to present that. And as well as been mentioned a few times today, it's always good to identify your key team skills and strengths and allocate the roles accordingly. And then try and allocate those as early on in the game as you can. Another one was splitting the group into smaller groups to go off and work on just sections of the problem to just digest it a little bit and speed up the delivery. And then for the next slide, I think Russell will be going into some of his power moves for project hacks from a bit more of an experienced background. So over to you, Russell.
Thank you, James. So having been to a few of these hacks before and using the experience of this current hack as well, we've written a bit of a list for anyone considering coming to a project hack. So somewhat of a summarized shopping list, really. So the first point is choose the challenge quickly. So if you can, review the challenges before the event starts and choose certainly a short list, if not a specific hack you'd like to go for. On the day of the hack, identify how many others have chosen the same challenge. If there is more than 6 people, it's ideal to split the teams appropriately. So if there was, say, 8, maybe go for 2 teams of 4. If there was 12, 2 teams of 6, or perhaps even 3 teams of 4, depending how that split seems best measured. And when you are creating a team, it is ideal to mix core skills and domain expertise, i.e. the project delivery, data analysis, data science, etc., etc. So if you have a team of 6 project delivery superstars, you will probably be able to come up with a great solution, but you won't be able to code it and make it work, and vice versa. If you have 6 deep learning specialists, you'll be able to come up with a great coded model, but you might not be able to transfer that into an actual solution that you can put forward as a winning solution. So try to go for a breadth of experience in the teams. Then identify the strengths of all team members and try and optimally spread the responsibilities of the required challenge across the team, which may mean that you don't work on something that's specifically within your core skills, but ideally within the best efforts of the team as a whole. Start working as soon as you possibly can. Try to avoid unnecessary spinning of wheels early on, kind of spitballing and coming up with a plan. Get straight in and start making efforts. Schedule timely reconnects throughout the day so that no one's working for an increased period of time without touching back, in which case you may end up diversing. Then identify also any sources of challenge or obstacle that may manifest, so that you can speak to the organizer, should I say. They usually have some specialists on task so that they can have someone come and join you for a short amount of time if you have a really difficult problem that you're struggling with. Then, and this is kind of tips for a winning submission. Do not ignore the importance of the presentation slide deck. I think this has already been said by a couple of the other teams, but you need to have it kind of slick and concise, so that you're not having to read 20 pages when one page would do, and it needs to be reflective of the solution that you're showing. And exactly the same with the video. Do not leave the video to the last minute. I think someone else also said it takes quite a long time to do this, especially if the technology is throwing spanners in the works, which inevitably it probably will do. Do choose a cool team night, and most importantly, be open to new ideas, blue sky thinking, out of the box thinking, etc. Don't be constrained by orthodox convention. Be objective in your assessment of everything you're looking at and the ideas of your colleagues, and certainly have fun. And that's it. So if you've got it in mind to come to a hack, I strongly recommend that you give it a go.
Okay, superb. Absolutely great. Folks, I really appreciate that. A quick question for you, if I may. We'll open up to questions at the end as well, but a quick question. So we threw you in at the deep end with a piece of code we've never really played with before. And most of you aren't data scientists, who's involved in it. So what's your experience and what's your advice for other people?
Is this regarding the GPT-3, Martin?
Yeah, basically, throwing yourself into something you've never seen before and just playing about.
Yeah, well, I think that the spread of people in our team were all forward-minded and dynamic, and I think that's what kind of drew people to GPT-3. So we were in a pretty good position to begin with, and even though it was a new system and an API we weren't familiar with, we all kind of had a bit of a play with it for about 30 minutes to get everyone to understand it, and then split out into our sub-teams and continue to dig down into it. So definitely be open-minded, even if it seems something that you've not worked in before, or it doesn't seem in one of your core skills. Just go with it, have a look in it, and if you do hit a brick wall, then come back and speak to yourself or one of your colleagues as the organisers, Martin, and explain that there is a bit of an obstacle there and get some help to get past it.
Most of that can be advice for life in general, I'd say.
Indeed.
I just think throw yourself in, give it a go.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, team. Yeah, and second place, and well deserved, I think, as well. You did something completely new. The project community has never seen that sort of stuff before, so I think you really smashed it. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
And I think GPT-3 is coming back, hopefully, for the next one as well. I think Warwick's trying to get a challenge sorted out for that. So thanks again, everybody. Right, last but not least, first place was Spawn Scrapers. So if I could pass over to Shalenda, Kuldit, John, Jennifer, and Hamish. Over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Martin. Hello all. We are team Spawn Scrapers. As you say, we Kuldip, Joseph, Jennifer, Daya, John, Hamish, and myself, Shalenda, part of the team. We are a mixture of senior estimators and data analysts, civil engineers, and Kickstarters from projecting success. It is a right mixture for the success, I think, and we live up to the expectations of the team composition. I would like to give a small disclaimer. This hack, we use a Spawn's data book, which is copyright protected. So if we would urge anybody to use the data to contact Spawns to ensure that you have right rights of use as appropriate. Next slide, please. So if you are worked with in the work winning or estimating or cost reporting environment, you will share the frustration of a friend here. So it is very very tight working against very tight deadlines to produce a budget. That's for to evaluate a value engineering option or an alternate method of construction or a new proposal from the client. So you put an estimate together, and within no time you need to at the last minute of the submission or deadline you need to change it. Going through the sponsor book, which is a physical, or if you get lucky enough to get a PDF version of it, you need to search through the document and copy paste those items, bill items. Next slide, please. So looking at his frustration, his best friend suggested to take this challenge to the project data analytics hackathons and come up with a tool to help our friend. Next slide, please. So he was so excited to get that tool to see because it sounded like a black magic. So he was excited and gave the information to take it to the hack and come up with a solution. That's what we have come up with. Next slide, please. Yeah, that's how we ended up in this hackathon to work on this challenge. Next slide, please. So if I put this introduction into a problem statement, so in traditional estimating, we have sponsor price books for different sectors like architects, builders price book, civil engineering, mechanical and electrical, so and so. So it is, as I said, mentioned, it is a physical book or PDF, which has the information we need to go through and pick the items we need for that particular project. So the solution we have come up to extract the pricing information and transfer that into a structured data set, so which we can easily look through and pick and mix the required items to produce a bill of quantities with the rates to produce the final cost estimate. Next slide, please.
So I'm Colin Keller, I'm the estimator. So the approach for this challenge that we had was we broke the challenge down into 4 steps. The first being the data extraction. So we exported the PDF into a CSV file using Python scripts. And then we interpreted, visualized it. So what we did with that, then we took the data, we manipulated it to preserve the hierarchies. It's difficult to, well, from the table itself, when we've got the prices within the tables, all we've got to work with are the actual headers within the tables. So the hierarchies that we've used are, what the headers are within the tables. And then thirdly, we connected the exported CSV file to a Power Apps to create a user interface. And then finally, we created the estimating tool to help the estimators search for the items and then add it to the quotes. This really helped us digitize the process for estimating, and it saves us a lot of time. Next, we've got is. Oh, sorry. Can you guys hear that? Because there's someone talking. So that's good. Oh, sorry. I can actually hear it on the presentation, the talk that we actually did on the. So what you can see, sorry, I'm going to have to turn that off. It's actually distracting me. 1 second. Sorry about that. So yeah, so for this section, we've got the data itself. So we focused on extracting the prices from the measured work section. The measured work section was about 400 pages long. So using a tabular module within the Python, we extracted the tables from the PDF and converted them into data frames. A verification was run to ensure all the pages that we have been extracted. There's a lot of data within the 400 pages, but that section of the book is the actual main section, which all the prices really are, coming from. It's the material, the labor, the norms that we use as well for each individual item. And then we had to implement the cleaning steps within the export. Items were split into separate rows if the string was too long, and also then we had to correct the hierarchy categorization. The final data frame was exported to the CSV, as you can see there. And then another verification step we actually added was to check that the item description and the hierarchy descriptions did not contain any null values. And then for the future development for this Python script, we'd like to, we did actually get stuck on one part of it where we couldn't actually take one of the hierarchies and convert that into the CSV file. So for future development, would like to actually get that final step in there and actually get more searches available. But even though what we did do, we have still got plenty of searching available. I'm going to pass you over to Hamish now to talk about the actual app itself.
Hi, so we decided to use Power Apps to show, to create the user interface. So here it would just be basic information about the project, and then the region, the prices would vary depending on the region you're in. And we also took the year to kind of try and predict inflation. With the Power App, we basically created a shopping basket. So the user would search up from the data which items they want, and the search box you could search through multiple layers. So you could choose the bold, so removing, or the kitchen fittings part, and then you would choose the quantity, add it into your shopping basket, and then there's also some functionality to be able to clear the whole basket or selected items. And then you've just got the total prices. You check out and be able to change some variables which would affect the total value, so productivity or the risk. And then you'd get your total value in the bottom right. We also did a comparison on the time it would take for creating this estimate in the Power App, and then I believe it was Caldip who went through the PDF and just searching manually to create the estimate, and we saw about a 35-minute improvement on speed.
Okay.
Hello, I'm John, everyone. I'm just going to run you through some of the benefits which we encountered. So the first and obvious one that Hamish touched upon is the speed. That one estimate, there was a 35 minutes time saving. And as Shalinda explained, the traditional method would be to leaf through a physical book or to go through a PDF and create your own spreadsheet alongside to start producing this basic estimate. And it felt like a very obvious solution that something like this could be produced. So speed was a key driver in what we were trying to produce. A second benefit was variety. This is also linked into future development that we were thinking of, but the Power App can be linked into multiple data sources, not just the PDF copy. So this is particularly interesting with regard to commodities. We would, if we had the time, we would be planning to index link things like the cost of concrete, cost of steel, cost of labour, which would be like a very broad estimate within Spons itself, but we could get like a real-time figure for these things. And based on like the current industry. The value of something like steel is fluctuating wildly day by day. So that would give this app even more power. Reliability is a key driver as well. So when Spons is published, it's fixed in time, and there are inflation figures which you apply, and location figures which you apply to produce some variance. And so if these are slightly off and you've got a large figure, then your estimate can be significantly off. So again, slightly touching on what I said moments ago, these can be adjusted day to day, like it can be live adjustments, just to increase the reliability of your estimates, to make sure that you're not under or overestimating something when you're submitting a tender. Adaptability is a final key element to this. When making changes using the app, it can be done very quickly. As Hamish demonstrated, you can clear your basket, you can add new things to your basket, you can change your quantities very quickly. And Cooldup and Schlinder have explained that in their line of work as estimators, they have preset templates, preset spreadsheets, which they work through, make amendments to the common items. So having their own catalogue of spreadsheets, it's inherent error. You can have inherent error in those sort of things. If you want to make changes, it's quite laborious. This is something that you just produce your basket and you move on. Next slide, please. So a little touch on a little bit of some of the future developments that we were thinking of going through. Cooldup touched on the coding refinements. One problem we did have was interpreting the tables within Spons to make sure we picked up every subheading, and this was a problem due to the way that the tables were produced. So we got around that by producing something on the day which would work, but we'd like to be able to have headings, subheadings, further subheadings, and then our item. It would make it more user-friendly, mean that you're not searching across demolitions and it's producing every demolition item. The second thing we'd like to change, we used Excel for this, but we would use SQL in the future. This would enable us to use a larger data set. The third thing we were thinking about doing was something around fuzzy matching of searching. So our search was a literal search within Power Apps. If we were to use some sort of fuzzy matching, we could have associated words, signs, signage, guarding, barriers, etc. And we didn't use Azure Cognitive Search, which is something we could improve this app by using, I think. As I touched upon before, estimators have templates for common items, which they use. So within this app, if we could say, laying a foundation is an item, it produces a template which you could then remove items, change quantities, adjust sizes. It means that speed, you're not building it, speed is the key to this. So you can start off with your template and build up from there. Another future development would be the feedback benchmarking. So making sure that the prices aren't drifting out of relevance, using estimates and comparing with actual prices to make sure that the app is relevant. This is similar to how Spons would do it, where they would release a new version, but you're able to adapt more quickly within this sort of environment. We'd also talk about exporting to other formats. So this is at the moment we have our data within the app. So that would be producing an estimate, printing to an estimate. It would be exporting to software, something like CMAR, which would store a price and pass it on to a client or a customer. Next slide, please. And finally, just to talk a little bit about our experience of the hackathon and advice that we could pass forward. I think it's fair to say that we were very surprised to finish first. It felt like when you see some of the other presentations, there's so much impressive work going on. So our work, I think, reflecting on it, the key to the success was the clarity of thought early on. We had a good mix of a team. We had technical people who were able to work within the apps and work within the code quickly to produce something. They also started early on that, so we got a good head start. We had estimators. So on this app, we had a really good picture of a user story, which we were able to float very, very early. And then we had more the project management side of it. So organizers, people who are comfortable presenting, comfortable arranging things and arranging people. So that meant that we were able to quite quickly understand what we wanted to do and come up with a plan about how we were going to do it. Some practical tips. The first thing, splitting of the teams. This is something which is really difficult to explain until you're in that environment, particularly in this remote when everything's done on Teams. But when you go into the day, you might you might have an idea about what you're going to do on that day. People might be arriving and just decide to join you. So your team expands quite quickly, and you might have a group of you, and you can spend a lot of time trying to divide up the team. It's something you really want to do quickly, and you can be on a Teams call where not many people are saying anything, so it requires somebody to take the lead early and to understand what the requirements are in a team, set a team, and fix it. There's a degree of with welcoming floaters on there, because there's always people floating around between challenges, might want to join late, and that's absolutely fine. You just have to be aware that this is something that you need to manage on that first morning, because you can you do spend the first morning essentially organizing yourselves, and you only have 2 mornings and 2 afternoons really, so you've used a quarter of the time setting up your team. So get your introductions done early, get your team lead set up early, and understand what your skills are quite quickly. It's then important to understand what you're aiming at, and scope is key. So scope and scale, what's actually achievable within 2 days, how you want it to look at the end. And we used Mural software. We all jumped on it and we created a plan for the 2 days. At the end, and we started from ours was Thursday, Friday. We started from Friday afternoon and worked back. Friday afternoon, we talked about what we were going to produce by a certain time. We worked back from there, and we set a schedule in place where we were having touch points every hour and a half, 2 hours, where we'd have a quick catch up, make sure we're all in the same direction, any problems were addressed. And we stuck to that plan. But the key to that was understanding what we were going to produce. And the key to that was understanding what was achievable. We split the team up into mini teams. So we had the technical team, we had the presentation team, the management team. So the management team, Kuldip and Shalinda, were able to make sure that what we were doing was always remaining on track. And it was, as it's been said numerous times, the presentation is something that takes a lot longer than you think. Likewise, the video. So because a few of us had done the hack before, we understood that essentially by about 1 o'clock on the second day, you've more or less got to have what your final item is going to be, bar the shouting. And then you're going to wrangle your presentation together, get your video sorted, and that takes up a significant amount of time. So there really isn't a great deal of time to actually work when you consider the first morning is organizing, the second afternoon is presenting. You've essentially got a day to sort the work out. As I say, the regular team meetings were really important to us. We just check in. It would give everyone a chance to just reconvene, reset the direction if we needed to, and to squash issues as they came up, so we could all jump on something if it needed a bit of unsticking. Kuldip was able to go away and seek advice from technical specialists within Projected Success to help us if we got stuck, and it enabled our technical team particularly just to get on with what they were doing and to produce something. And yeah, just to reiterate, very surprised that we finished first, but we did work really well as a team. So we came out the second day proud of what we produced. It was simple, and it seemed obvious to us, but we didn't have any major hiccups. And that, I think, setting up a plan early and sticking to it was the key to that. So that would be my major recommendation. Work as a team, communicate regularly, do enjoy it. It's quite daunting if it's your first go. I just appreciate that the time's whistled by. There's not a great deal of time to do anything. So I think that's it from us.
Okay, superb. Thank you much. So in terms of your team, a quick question for you from me. It's a great challenge that you worked on, right? And a really, really great solution. You came away with first prize. Now, some of you are fairly new to this and some of you's got a bit more experience. Can you give some advice to those people who's brand new to it?
Yeah, definitely. I think, sorry, Colin, I thought you.
Oh, go on.
Yeah,
it's all frightening. You know, they're looking at this and thinking, oh, I don't know where to start. I don't know what challenge to get involved in. I'm going to come along and embarrass myself. Right, all these other questions that's going through their mind. Can you just sort of appease them a little bit?
Well, within our team, we had 7 members, and 3 of us were a part of the apprenticeship, and we only started within project data analytics last October. This was my second hack, and I think maximum it could be our third, due to the amount we've been through. The first one I went to was like a rabbit in headlights. Didn't know what to expect, but you would be surprised about what you can contribute. Technically, I don't mean to put you down, Kuldeep and Shalinda, but the 3 of us aren't nearly technical specialists, aren't remotely technical.
No, we had some decent guys in there from data analytics, and we had the Kickstarter as well. So yeah, technically they were a lot more ahead of us, really.
You can definitely contribute, can't you? You can. But having Shalinda and Kuldeep knowing what they wanted the end result to look like was really important. And anyone can do that. It's about taking a step back and thinking what you want to come up with at the end of the second day. And that doesn't require enormous technical expertise. Myself and one other within the team, Joseph, we were more involved in the project management side of it and setting up the presentation and just working through what was needed to be done when, making sure that if there were anyone was short-handed, trying to step in like that. So despite the fact that you might not have the technical expertise to be able to unpick a Python code, sometimes it doesn't require somebody to go over the script. Absolutely, just need someone to just have an appreciation of what you're trying to achieve and see if you can apply some logic to it. But don't be daunted by the fact that it's always going to be quite technical, because it requires all sorts within these teams.
I think, if I may add to that, these hackathons look very big challenges and sometimes quite intimidating, but the environment we go into are very friendly, and everybody respects everyone else, and I think that gives us everyone to contribute irrespective of at what level of data analytics journey you're in. We need everyone on this, subject matter experts, data analysts, and people with good project management skills. So I would encourage everyone, if they are on the borderline, to come or not. Definitely, it's a thing to give it a go and experience that personally.
Great. And well done, folks. You know, you came away with top prize, £3 between you. Yeah, well done. Hopefully you bought yourself something nice.
I'll spend it.
And try again for the next one, eh? If we could open the floor up to questions, I'll get finished by 8:30 latest. So any questions from anybody out there? It's your opportunity to have a chat with anybody from the teams tonight. Ralph, go for it.
There is a question.
Just a very quick question, 2 questions actually, but very quick ones. The first one is, when are we going to have the details of the challenges? I know I've just seen the names of the challenges, but I mean the files or the what are the stuff that I'm going to receive? I mean, when this week? That's the first thing. Second thing is, I'm a little bit dumb or daft when it comes to coding. I don't have this huge experience in Python. So how would I be possibly adding to the team? That's it.
So Sophie can pick up the first question. So when's it live, Sophie?
So the challenge titles are on Eventbrite now, and there's more descriptions on LinkedIn. So Amina's releasing about 2 to 3 a day with all the challenges, up to 11 or 12 to be released by Monday. And then I'm going to send out the whole hack pack about 4 or 5 days before the hack.
So that's with the data as well. So in terms of your skills and coming along, I think I'll just open the floor, right? So if you've got no Python skills, so you still make a contribution. So can somebody sort of share their experience, you know?
I can jump in, Martin, but there's just some background noise.
Let me see where it's coming from.
I think it was you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Right, finally. Sorry, we have thunderstorms here just now. In terms of the question about lack of Python skills, I can actually pick that up. So as I was saying, I'm an MSc data science postgraduate student, but I've only been coding for just over a year. I don't have the computer science background, but I still went to the hackathons because I wanted to learn more. I wanted to develop my skill set. The only way you're going to do that is if you actually do it, if it makes sense. But that doesn't mean that you don't have anything else to bring to the table. You might see things from a different perspective. You might have excellent communication skills, so you can do the presentation, the recording the video. You never know what it's actually going to look like. So you don't need to be a full stack developer for your input to matter in the team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thanks so much, Alexandra.
Yeah, so don't feel intimidated by your lack of Python skills. Like in Project Hack10, most of the solution was actually done in HTML and Java plus some Python. Now I know Python, but I don't know the other two. It was the first time that I worked in them, but that didn't put me off because I wanted to learn them. And the team was really, really warm and really helpful in helping me navigate that. So, again, you never know. You just need to be a little bit open-minded there. And don't be afraid.
Yeah, cool. And as well, it's worth checking out Alex's blog. So there's something on the community website. So have a look on there as well. And it's a great blog, lots of good insights on there. So thanks for sharing that with us, Alex. Really appreciate it.
No worries. I'm really just talking about, my experience of being in Project Hack from a student perspective. So if anyone feels intimidated, I know there was a question early on about not being a professional or not having the skill set. You don't have to feel put back because of it. So just check out the blog and I'll give you my little journey through the 2 hacks that I participated in.
Okay, so it's just been posted there. So thanks for doing that, Sophie. Yeah, very good of you. Any more questions from anybody? Come off mute if there's anybody who's got a question. If not, absolutely superb tonight. It's been really good that we're all working together, all sharing that experience, all working collegiately. And this is what.
Sorry, Martin, can I just quickly ask you a question?
Yeah, Chris, go for it. Yeah, please do.
And sort of a bit of a silly question, but in terms of the video presentations, what were people using to put those together, and was that being done collectively, or was one person doing it in each team?
So go for it, Alex.
Yeah, thank you. So we used OBS, which is free to use to record our presentation. I had OBS open on my screen, and everyone else was just speaking over the presentation. I believe it was James that had access to the actual PowerPoint. But that's just one way of doing it. There are other softwares out there, but OBS tends to be the most frequently used because it's pretty good and it's free.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Yeah. And it Teams as well. Some people just sort of video Teams and then go and chop it up. go and put your slides in there as well. Yeah, there's various sort of options for you. We've got some tech support on the day who can help you with that. So Matt will give you some advice on that on the day as well.
Awesome.
Cool. So Chris, looking forward to seeing you there. Anybody else? No. Well, a big thank you to everybody. Really impressive. Some great solutions there as well. And I think, we're just starting to sort of scratch the surface with this stuff. I think there's a huge amount of opportunity to make a difference. So well done, everybody. It's on the 7th and 8th of August. If you could post the link one more time for me, Sophie, sort of back to the hack. So thanks again, everybody, and have a great evening. And we'll see you on the 7th, hopefully. Bit of luck. All right. Yeah, cheers.